All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. And our website that is going to be changing in the next couple of weeks, www.xzoneradiotv.com. The URL isn't changing. The look is. That's right. Branding time. What can I say, Exonation? My guest this hour is Ken Pfeifer. He runs the New Jersey office of the World UFO Photos, which is a part of a MUFON organization, I believe. His job is to receive reports of unusual lights, aircraft, or other phenomenon that could possibly be evidence of alien encounters. Now, Ken gets reports from just about everywhere and from just about every kind of person. With the popularity of cell phone cameras and miniature digital stills and video technology, the stories Ken receives often have visual proof to back them up. Joining me now is Ken Pfeifer, who is also Exonation, the chief investigator for MUFON in New Jersey, Vermont, and Rhode Island. And Ken, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you, Robbie. It's an honor to be on your show there. I have a lot of things to go over. And I wanted to thank Laura Rogers, who helped put some of this together so I can come on the show.
I'll make sure she gets that message. Tell me, what was it that brought you into the world of ufology?
Well, I as a child, I've been looking at the sky all my life, essentially. I lived in Philadelphia, and my father was an ex-Navy man. He was a combat veteran with the Navy, World War II. And as a matter of fact, he went to the Pole with Admiral Byrd in the late 40s.
Wow.
But, he'd always take us down to the airport in Philadelphia, and then we moved to a small town called National Park, New Jersey, which is on the Delaware, and it's directly across from the Philadelphia International Airport and the Philadelphia Naval Yard. So, as a child, I've been, spotting planes and looking at planes and looking, basically looking to the sky ever since I was 4 or 5 years old, and it's kind of helped me spot a few strange things. And if you're not looking in the sky, you're not going to see any UFOs, Rob.
That's right. Now, you yourself are a Desert Storm veteran, and I also understand you're a private pilot. How has being a private pilot helped you as a chief investigator for MUFON?
Well, I really haven't had any sightings while I'm flying or while I was flying, but I've been with MUFON since around 2004, 2005. I started working with George Pfeifer. I'm sure you know who George Pfeifer is.
Of course, yes, definitely.
Yeah, he's my boss. And,
great man.
He lives in... Yeah. And when I started investigating, I was the only investigator at the time. So, George threw me to the wolves, and I started knocking out investigations and, taking my time, doing it right. And as of right now, I have over 500 investigations through MUFON, New Jersey, and also it's starting to pile up now. I have quite a few with Vermont and Rhode Island. So it's the most rewarding thing that I've ever done. We don't get paid a penny for doing any of this, but it's just something that it's a passion of mine, and I'm retired, so, keeps me out of trouble. You can only fish so much. So,
Now, in your opinion, and based on the number of reports that not only you but MUFON get, are UFO sightings on the rise?
Well, I feel they are. I think with more people having their basically their cameras on them, with their phones, and there's just more people out there who is starting to get into the the ufology part of UFO and sightings, and yeah, we're getting a lot of, especially photos. We're getting tons of photos, and of course, a lot of these photos, people take photos of a wedding party or their vacation and come home and come to find out that there's some strange things on their photos,
Right.
and quite frankly, I think today's cameras. Yeah, I don't know if you realize, but today's cameras they have infrared capabilities, and quite frankly, I think today's cameras can see what our eyes can't see. So I'm not, readily willing to write off anything really, because just because a person didn't see the UFO in their photo doesn't mean that it wasn't there.
Ken, stand by. You and I have to take a 2-minute commercial break. We'll be right back. Exonation, Ken Pfeifer is our special guest this hour. Here's a couple of websites, www.worldufophotos.org and www.worldufophotosannews.org. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Ken Pfeifer and I return on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break as we continue here from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Exonation, Ken Pfeifer is our very special guest this hour. A couple of websites for you, www.worldufophotos.org and www.worldufophotosannews.org. Ken, with all the photos that you're getting because of the digital technology these days, is it more evident than before that there is more in the sky than we know? And how do we know that the pictures you're getting that people are believing to be UFOs are not actually military aircraft that just go unidentified?
Well, that's true. I'm sure that some of these aircraft are possibly experimental aircraft with the military. But a lot of times, like I said, we get a lot of people from MUFON sending in their photos, and like I said, they're finding these images on their photos. And what we have, I think one good way of trying to catch a hoax or a fraud would be, I don't know if you're aware, but on today's digital cameras, there's information on each photo that's attached, EXIF information, and sometimes you can catch someone who has possibly try to change something in Photoshop or something like that, depending on the program that they have. But quite frankly, I'll tell you, if it looks strange to me, if it looks like it's a possible UFO, then I usually go with the witness. If I believe the witness. That's the problem we're having with MUFON right now, I feel, is the problem is there are too many investigators out there from MUFON right now who they're getting a lot of cases, and quite frankly, they're guessing what the witness may have seen. So they're writing a lot of these, I feel, important cases off as IFO, identified flying objects, a bird, a bug, the ISS, you name it, and they're guessing. That's what they do. And it's a shame that I think a lot of really good information, a lot of credible information is just going by the wayside because an investigator is writing it off as something identified.
So what type of training would an investigator in MUFON get? Wouldn't it be the same training in MUFON in California? That would be the same investigative training in MUFON, New York, Rhode Island, Vermont? And if that's the case, if the training is the same, how come there are so many different hypotheses for what these photos are?
Well, I think, all the training is the same from what I understand. Like I said, I've been with MUFON close to 10 years, and some of their training techniques have changed a little bit from what I understand over the years. But I think they should really be giving future investigators some kind of a psychological test, to test them to see if first of all, if they believe in UFOs, if they don't believe in UFOs, I mean, what's happening is I feel we're getting a lot of debunkers in MUFON and a lot of these UFO organizations, just not MUFON, but I would say all of the organizations out there, they all have debunkers in them, and these people are doing everything they can to just debunk anything and everything, and writing so many cases off as IFO, identified flying objects, and that's one of the big problems MUFON has, and not blaming MUFON. MUFON is so large, and quite frankly, we don't get paid anything for doing what we do, and I think that the organization has gotten so big that it's almost impossible for a state director to be able to monitor, each case file and go over it with a fine-tooth comb and pick out. But what happens sometimes if they tell an investigator, a few times that it's I'm sure it wasn't an identified flying object. What they do is they quit.
Really?
So,
well, it wasn't that long ago when one of your state directors, during the early hours of the disappearance of Flight 370, MH370, said that he put out a press release that it was an extraterrestrial craft, a UFO that abducted the entire aircraft along with its crew.
Was that a MUFON person?
Yes, it was.
That's scary to me. I mean, that's kind of reaching pretty far without any kind of real investigation. How the hell do you investigate that?
Well, why would you say it in the first place?
That's so. I disagree 100%. Sometimes, like I'm saying, we're getting people that are purposely doing this and putting a black eye on MUFON. I think what it is.
Tell me about the most important or impressive case that you've worked on as a chief investigator for MUFON.
I have a pretty couple and incredible ones. I would have to say that my I sent some. Were you able to get some of the photos I sent you?
Yes, we did.
Okay, now I do have some photos. Let me just go to what I sent you here. These are pretty incredible shots, nighttime shots of a. That would be. Yeah, I have a question too, Q2, where there's 3 photos there, and it looks like a double light bar on them photos. And actually what that was the second sighting that this gentleman had. And the first sighting was, let me see here, I'm bringing this up here. I had people from ViewZone.com did an article about the sighting that I investigated. And this was in Bridgeton, October 13, 2006. I interviewed the witness, CS. He was concerned about his recent sighting, and he provided a drawing of the flying triangle that passed over his astronomical observatory on October 13, 2006 at around midnight. And he was an amateur astronomer, and he had an observatory out back, and he was new to the area. Very credible gentleman, retired, him and his wife. He was big into astrophotography, I guess they call it, and that's why he moved out in that area, because there's hardly any, he can see the stars very easily, and he was basically scared to death. I'll have a brief paragraph here I'd like to read off, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I like to read them off, so I don't want to forget anything. It says here, his statement was, he says, I was confronted with an enormous object clearly defined by ambient light. I thought it was crashing, but as it approached my observatory, it began to rise. This thing was barely moving forward and could not have been more than 200 feet above me, probably less. I could make out details of rivets and bolts in its construction as the object's rounded nose began to approach me. I was really taken back by its brightly lit windows. I was shocked to see a humanoid form moving as it were pacing back and forth in the large port windows about 8 feet square. As it got closer, the figure moved away from the window, and the figure is shown in the upper right side of the drawing. I apologize. I did not send you a copy of the detailed drawing that he presented to me, but it was pretty detailed. I thought there was no one at the controls. I got the impression it was getting ready to hover as it opened. Its hatch moved directly over me, and I was entertaining some negative thoughts regarding my own safety. Talking to the witness, he described it basically looked like a black dumpster that was hanging from beneath this enormous triangle. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that we could really figure out was, we think that they were possibly looking for either horses or cattle in the area, because it's very rural in Bridgeton area, Alloway Township. It's South Jersey, and it's very, very rural. And we came to the conclusion that that's what it probably was. So continuing here, it was at least 2 stories high. It was 2 large windows, port and starboard. It had a rounded nose. There were 3 opaque light-style structures, 2 large turbo-type structures, larger in diameter and shorter in length than those on commercial aircraft. 8, there was flaps or stabilizers-style structures aft, and a large square black container. That's what I was talking about, the large black container that was protruding off the center from under its belly. An open hatch and other bulky geometric shapes that I saw, but I could only remember that they were thick, huge, bulky, with an incredible amount of drag that it could not be aerodynamically possible. Also, immediately I felt a surge of static electricity that tingled my face and hair on my arms and head as its tail section was about to pass over me. I quickly swung the dome and heard a low-pitched roar with the sound of baking sizzling in a frying pan. Suddenly it was gone. No sound, and I did a 360-degree search, but suddenly there was nothing there. So, like I said, I interviewed him, and he was physically shaken. I had to go out to his house quite a few times to kind of talk him off the ledge there. He was afraid to go out back, and he was pretty shaken up. As a matter of fact, he became a MUFON investigator because of this incident. So the crazy part about this, the photos I sent you, this is the second sighting that he had. And as you can see, there's 2 light bars, and this object, there's high power lines there, you can see in the photo, and this object was stopped. It was basically rotating on its axis, and a lot of debunkers says, well, it's an airplane. It was flying fast, and the shutter speed of the camera, blah blah blah. They kill me. No, this object was standing still or moving very slowly, and he was ready this time. He got out back there. He had his camera ready, and he was snapping away. So. Many photos. These are probably 3 of the best ones that we have right now. And this happened on September 24, 2007. Same location. MUFON case number is 8111. And the witness statement is the night of September 24, 2007 was brightly lit due to a full moon. It was approximately 11:30 p.m., and I was outside with a digital camera nearby. I had nothing special in mind, but due to the bizarre experience I had last October 2006, this experience had been recorded on the MUFON website. I always keep a camera on hand when I'm out at night. A bright light again caught my eye, and I observed this rectangular-shaped light begin to rise slowly behind a tree line.
Ken, I'm going to have to hold you here because I've got to take my news break at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by. Ken Pfeifer and I will return on the other side of this story, a cliffhanger, and we'll continue talking about UFOs here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton. Don't go away.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN-TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Exonation, welcome back, everyone, to all our new affiliates around the world and to the new listeners of the DMZ Broadcast Network. Welcome to the X Zone. Ken Pfeifer is my very special guest this hour. He is the chief investigator for MUFON for the state of New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Vermont. Here's a couple of websites. He's got a lot of great photos, Exonation. www.worldufophotos.org and www.worldufophotosannews.org. And Ken, thanks so much for being with us. It's a great pleasure talking to you after all these years of watching you and going to your website. We were talking about a case that you're investigating before we went to the news, and I'd like you to finish it off so we can talk about more great UFO stuff.
Okay, yeah, sure. Now, this was the basically second part of this Alloway Township, Bridgeton, New Jersey sighting that this gentleman had. I'll continue here. It says here, well, it happened the night of September 24, 2007, and it was brightly lit to a full moon. It was approximately 11:30 at night, and I was outside with a digital camera ready. He was ready this time because, he was basically in shock the first time that this humongous triangle flew over his observatory there. So he had a camera now. He was kind of, hoping that something would come by, and it did. He said he had nothing special in mind, but due to the bizarre experience I had last October 2006, I always keep a camera on hand when I'm out at night. A bright light again caught my eye, and I observed this rectangular-shaped light begin to rise slowly behind a tree line in the south, approximately 1 mile away. This object appeared to hover for about 20 seconds and then began to travel west at a very low speed. As it began to moving west, it seemed to pivot on both the vertical and horizontal axis, revealing more detail until it disappeared behind a tree line. I captured this object with my digital, and the pictures came out surprisingly well. I use a Canon 20D A-A, which I use for astrophotography, and I have transferred these images to a disk. And, that's what he captured there. I sent them photos out to you. I'm hoping maybe you can display them somehow. But like I said, this witness, he became an investigator from MUFON, and we basically closed this case out as unknown. We got no cooperation from the neighbors. He was fairly new to the area down there. And, I went down there, and I felt this case was so important. I'm basically knocking on doors asking people if they've seen anything strange, in the sky at night. And they're very rude, just turn around, wouldn't say a word. It was really weird. That's all I can really say about that. But
Ken,
got
tell me,
very little cooperation from anyone, and we after a few months we closed this out as unknown, and that's still unknown as we speak right now. So that was pretty remarkable. I think are probably one of the best nighttime photos of a I'm going to call it alien craft. I'm not even going to call it a UFO.
But let me ask you this, Ken. When you go out and do an investigation, how does the public generally react to an investigator from a UFO organization asking them questions if they've seen a UFO?
Well, quite frankly, I would say 99% of our investigations are done over the phone. There's really no sense in since MUFON doesn't pay us anything. There's no sense in driving 40 miles so a witness can point up into the sky and say, yeah, that's where it was. So we do most of our investigations over the phone. We have a very long form that they have to fill out to answer many, many questions, which they do, surprisingly. And I've only had to travel out a few times. I've had a couple alien abduction cases that I was involved in. And, like I said, this case here warranted me going out there to see what the heck was going on because of the photos that he sent me. So They're the ones that you want to go to. Now, in the past, I'm sure you realize that a gentleman named Bigelow, he was
Yeah.
entrepreneur from in Las Vegas. He was paying for MUFON investigators to go out and find or investigate, high-profile cases, and he paid me. They sent me out to New London, Connecticut, a few years ago, and I went to New London, Connecticut for 3 days, and apparently there was a very large triangle that flew right over top of New London, Connecticut. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but that is where the General Dynamics plant is for the nuclear subs.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the nuclear sub pens are. There's a nuclear plant that sits very close to New London, and there's also I think it's the Coast Guard Academy. So if any alien craft was going to fly over a location, this would be the one.
Sure.
But after a few days of investigating, talking to many people, interviewing many people, the police, the local TV, the local newspaper, they didn't want anything to do with me. They wouldn't even let me in the building. Now I came up with zeros with that one there. No one said that they've seen anything, and talked to a lot of guards. At nighttime, they would be the guys to talk to. They're the ones that are out at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and guarding the General Dynamics. Or there's a lot of other corporations. Pfizer, I think, has a very big plant there, and talking to all these guards that were there at night. Of course, they told me they weren't allowed to mention anything. They weren't allowed to talk about things like that. So,
but Ken, tell me about your encounter going back to 2006 at Area 51.
Oh yeah, okay, that was pretty incredible. We were celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary. So me and my wife never been to Vegas before, so we decided to go out. We stayed at the Luxor for 7 days and got married at the top of the stratosphere there for our 30th. Yeah, so we had a good time, had fun.
Good for you.
And but I had all intentions of going to Area 51. I mean, of course I was new with MUFON, and that was one of my main things that I wanted to do. So we had a couple days left, and surprisingly, my wife agreed to go with me. So I said, okay, let's get in the rental, and we headed out. So doing a lot of research, I found it very easily. On Google Earth and down the extraterrestrial highway. It took about an hour and a half, hour 45 to get to the front gate of Area 51, but I was afraid to go down the front gate because I heard so many stories of, guards harassing you and all this and that. So I wanted to find the back gate, which not so many people know about. We drove down to the little alien, in Rachel, Nevada. You've probably seen it on TV 1,000 times, a tourist trap for, alien dolls and keychains and all this and that. So we went in there and got something to eat. And it's funny, they didn't have a menu. Whatever they were cooking that day is what you ate. So I talked to the owner, and she was pretty nice, and we sat down and had, I forget what it was, chicken dumplings and corn or something. So I said to her, I said, I know the back gates of Area 50 is Area 51 is around her somewhere, and she says, yeah, it's right down the road there. She's about a quarter mile down. She says, you passed it. So we finished up and bought a few souvenirs, and we jumped in the car and we drove down about a quarter mile, and it was a very wide road. It looked like it was well maintained, gravel road. You could tell that it was probably wide enough and maintained for trucks or buses or whatever. So we started out in our adventure there, and it was 10 miles to the back gate of Area 51. So we started driving. We got about 5 miles into our little adventure there, and all of a sudden it was a very, very loud, almost ear-shattering, it sounded like. It was a very high-pitched, wavering noise. And, of course, the first thing we did is we jumped down in our seats and almost clunked our heads together trying to get down on the floor of the Cadillac we were driving.
Sure.
And we waited for what seemed a few minutes, and then we kind of popped our heads up, and started to peek outside, just wondering what the hell was going to be out there. But there was nothing. I got out of the car, looked around, and there wasn't a damn thing in sight. The only thing that we saw earlier was a couple F-16s. They looked like they were at about maybe 2,000 or 3,000 feet. Just cruising, just guarding, I guess. Mm-hmm. But so we got back in the car, and we were kind of shaken by it. I says, well, we're halfway there. So my wife said, well, let's do it. So we did. We went out to the back gate there and stopped and took pictures of all the signs that said don't take pictures, and we that was that. We didn't have anything else happen. We drove out of there, and that was really the strangest thing that ever happened to me. I have no idea what it was.
You rebel, taking pictures of the no picture signs. Listen, I understand going back to 1952, there was quite a bit of UFO activity over Washington, D.C.
Yeah. Now, it's really weird, but everybody talks about Roswell. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Roswell is small potatoes compared to the 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident they had.
Really?
Yeah, it's. Are you aware of it, any? Or I'm sure you've heard of it.
I have, but I'd like to hear your take on it.
Well, it happened. Let me see. I'm reading from Wikipedia here. I'll tell you what. Anybody wants to find out anything, Google it. Go to Wikipedia, and they have it all. I do a lot of my research through Google, and if it's not on Google, mm-hmm. it probably doesn't exist, but. Basically, between July 12th and July 29th, couple weeks period, 1952, over Washington, D.C., was the most publicized sighting took place on consecutive weekends. And basically, events of July 19th and 20th at 11:40 p.m. on Saturday, July 19th, Edward Nugent, air traffic controller at Washington National Airport. Of course, today it's Ronald Reagan's Washington National Airport. He spotted 7 objects on his radar. The objects were located 15 miles southwest of the city. No known aircraft was in the area, and the objects were not following any established flight path. So Nugent's supervisor, Harry Barnes, a senior air traffic controller at the airport, watched the objects on Nugent's radar scope. He later wrote, "We knew immediately that mm-hmm. that a very strange situation existed. Their movement was completely radical compared to those of ordinary aircraft." So Barnes and 2 controllers checked Nugent's radar, and they found that it was working normally. Barnes then called National Airport's other radar center, and the controller there, Howard Coughlin, told Barnes that he also had the objects on his radar scope. Furthermore, Coughlin said that by looking out of the control tower window, he could see one of the objects, a bright orange light. I can't tell what's behind it. So they didn't make actual contact. They did actually see something. And at this point, the other objects appeared in all sectors of the radar scope. Then they moved over to White House in the United States Capitol. Barnes called Andrews Air Force Base, located 10 miles from National Airport. Although Andrews reported that there was no unusual object on his radar, an airman soon called the base control tower to report the sighting of a strange object. Airman William Brady, who was in the tower, then saw an object which appeared to be like an orange ball of fire trailing a tail. It was like anything I had ever seen before. As Brady tried to alert the other personnel on the tower, the strange object tipped off at an unbelievable speed. Meanwhile, another person in the National Airport Control Tower reported seeing an orange disc about 2,000 feet altitude on one of the airport's runways. S.C. Pierman, a Capital Airlines pilot, was waiting in the cockpit of his DC-4 for permission to take off. After spotting what he believed to be a meteor, he was told that the control tower's radar had picked up unknown objects closing in on his position. Pierman observed 6 objects, white, tailless, fast-moving lights, over a 14-minute period. Cameron was in control contact with Barnes during his sighting, and Barnes later related that each sighting coincided with a pip he could see near his plane. When he reported that the light streaked off at a high speed, it disappeared off on our scope. In the meantime, Andrews Air Force Base, meanwhile, the control tower personnel was tracking on radar what some thought to be unknown objects, but others suspected, and in one instance were able to prove were simple stars and meteors. However, Staff Sergeant Charles Davenport observed an orange-red light to the south. A light would appear to stand still, then make an abrupt change in direction and altitude. This happened several times. At one point, both radar centers at the National Airport and the radar in Andrews Air Force Base were tracking an object hovering over a radio beacon. The object vanished in all three radar centers at the time. So, this is a very,
Sure.
I could read for hours.
No, okay, hold on. We've got to take our final break here, Ken. When we come back, we're going to wrap up this hour in the X Zone with our guest this hour, Ken Pfeifer. And I'll also give you the 2 websites that you can go to see these photos for yourself, X Zone Nation. Great websites filled with information. Ken Pfeifer and I will return on the other side of the short break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We'll be right back. Oh, Exonation, you guys should hear what goes on during commercial breaks here. Somebody's going to get coffee, so my producer says, would you like anything? I said, yeah, grab me an extra large black. And I said, there's a couple of bucks in my drawer. Go get it, and we'll pay for the coffee for everybody. He said, well, today was payday. I said, fine, then you pay for it. But listen, speaking about food and coffee, what was the food like at the Little Alien Inn?
It was good.
Yeah?
It wasn't bad at all. Like I said, back then, I don't know if it's different now. They may have a menu, but you couldn't find a menu, and they were cooking chicken dumplings.
Listen, speaking about TV and so on, do you find as a researcher, as a chief investigator for MUFON, that all these shows on TV, like Alien Hunters, Ancient Aliens, are they helping you, or are they hindering the true investigation of UFOs?
Well, I'll tell you what. I was really impressed by the MUFON's the new MUFON's UFO. I think it was called UFO Hunters. I was very surprised. It was done very well, and quite frankly, I think they were able to get some more people who want to be investigators to join MUFON. I thought it was pretty good. A lot of these other shows, I can't even watch. I'm ready to jump out a window in 5 minutes.
Wear a parachute when you watch TV, pal.
Yeah.
Listen, what would you like to tell the worldwide listening audience of the X Zone tonight before we say so long?
Well, I first of all, I'd like everybody to go to Google and Google 1952 Washington D.C. UFO. And read. There's some just incredible. Roswell, I think is small potatoes compared to this, and I think it's a big hot potato. As a matter of fact, I'm in the process of also investigating. During that time, they had some F-84s take off from Newcastle Airport, and I have a witness who was 9 years old at the time. He said that there was a UFO disc at the end of one of the runways at Newcastle Airport at the same time that these discs were flying over Washington, D.C. So we're in the process of investigating that right now. And I think what I want to say is, a lot of people do not realize how large this universe is. Quite frankly, I think there may be 1 trillion, I'll say 100 trillion, Earth-like planets that's floating around in space right now.
We are not alone.
Exactly.
Listen, Ken, once again, I want to thank you so much. Let our listeners know how they can find out more about you, MUFON, and see those pictures.
Well, my website, worldufophotos.org, I got over 7,500 I'm sitting on about 6,000 photos
Wow.
right now. I only publish like 3 or 4 a day. I don't want to throw them all on air at once. I want people to be coming back, but I hit over 100,000 logos a month, so it's starting to catch on. And my other news website, World UFO Photos and News.org, I have over 300 logons, 300,000 logons so far. So it's all these things. I believe they're real, and if I think they're real, or if I think the photo looks like the real thing, I'm going to publish it.
Ken, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us tonight. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. Do the world a favor and keep up the great work.
Rob, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be on your show, and I appreciate it very much.
Sir, the honor has been all ours. Take care of yourself, Ken. I look forward to speaking to you in the near future and to putting your articles in the X-Chronicles newspaper.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Take care, Ken. Exo Nation, Ken Pfeifer has been my guest this hour. He's the chief investigator for MUFON for the states of Rhode Island, New Jersey, and Vermont. A couple of websites, worldufophotos.org and worldufophotosandsnews.org. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as the X-Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center right here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.